But yeah, everything's changing, from immigration to the LGB nutcases to calling people out for paedophilia, for talking about, deportations, mass deportations. Everything's changing. We've not had a government probably since Thatcher in the 80s who concentrated on British people living on the British Isles. How can diversity be our strength when diversity raping our children? Is this inherent in the Pakistani community? If it is, we'll see other examples of this, historic examples of when they've done this type of thing before.
One of a significant Labour member, a Labour politician.
I'm waiting for a joke here. I can see a twinkle in your eye.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to edition 71 of The Mayor and I, Lindsay Kahn, the Mayor, Nick Buckley, MBE. And it's a special edition, number 71, Nick, because it's our anniversary edition. It's exactly 1 year to the day that we started The Mayor and I.
It is. When this goes out tomorrow, on Wednesday, that will be our 1 year anniversary. 71 episodes in a year.
Congratulations. It feels longer, Nick, if you don't
It feels like a lifetime. I know people who have murdered people and got out sooner.
So it's actually a long time a year. I was reflecting on it.
Yeah.
That doing this every week for a year. I know there've been one or two slight breaks, but we've done 71 episodes, so it's tremendous. Very well done.
We started off with one episode a week, and then some of them got that long. We split some of them into part one, part two.
Yes.
And then we decided, let's stop splitting. Let's just do 2 episodes. So that's why we've got up to 71.
Yes. And to celebrate the anniversary, you've bought new chairs for us.
We've got new chairs. I think you bought them.
Yeah.
But we have got new chairs. We've got arms on. You can lean back.
Very comfortable. The studio goes from strength to strength. So
if only we could sort the audio out.
Yes. So the audio we've been having problems with. You've been accused of sabotage. But I'm sure it hasn't been. So hopefully the audio will work, because there's nothing worse than having to do the whole thing again, which we can't do.
And these chairs are so much more comfortable. You actually look comfortable sat down.
Thank you very much. I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Whether I'll stay that way.
Well, to be fair, at the 2 chairs we had, I always gave you the worst one.
So I basically got the worst chair and the worst mic. But anyway, congratulations on a year of The Mayor and I. And I think your subscriptions are now nearly up to 30,000.
We're about 200 away.
Yeah. And your total views are in the order of millions now, I think, if we look at your...
Yeah, a normal month now is somewhere between... A bad month's 500,000 views a month. A good month is just under 1 million views. We've not hit 1 million in a month yet, but we're getting very close sometimes to 1 million views.
Yeah.
That black taxi driver video we did has hit 250,000 views.
Wow.
Just by that clip by itself. So some things are really doing well.
So hopefully, I mean, the original idea was to get the message out there about the things that you and I sort of are seeing in day-to-day basis and weren't tolerating. And I think we have moved a long way. And just on that, one of the first things I wanted to talk about is, do you think things are changing out there in terms of people's reaction to the various issues that we're facing as a country?
It has, and it's been changing for a good few years, but recently it's speeding up quicker than I thought it would speed up. Some of the conversations that we're having as a nation now, we're having as the West, I can't believe we're having them, because 6 months ago nobody was having them. People like me and you were talking about those issues, but the mainstream press weren't, politicians weren't. Things have changed. It was changing before Trump won the election, but I think Trump's election victory in November turbo boosted what's going on. And the fact he takes power now next week, I think, we'll see another big jump in change then.
Yeah, I mean, I know Trump's across the Atlantic, but I'd like to talk about him later and what you think is happening on there. But I've got one big question I want to ask you, and I'm not sure our viewers will agree with this question. And on reflection, is Keir Starmer the best thing that's ever happened to us in this country in terms of politics? I've
been saying it for a year or two. I was hoping for a Labour victory. I was telling people I wasn't going to vote for Labour. I'm not that sadistic, but I knew Labour was going to win, and I wanted them to win because I've been saying things have to get worse before they get better. And I think I used that example of when you put a frog in cold water and put it on a cooker. You can heat the frog and boil it alive. If you put a frog in hot water, it jumps out. And that's what was happening to this country. They were slowly boiling us to death, Labour and the Tories, over decades. And suddenly we realised now we're jumping out the water. But yeah, everything's changing, from immigration to the LGB nutcases to calling people out for paedophilia, for talking about, deportations, mass deportations. Everything's changing. And the fact we've got Keir Starmer and Labour in power, and part of me feels a little bit sorry for them because they this government inherited all these problems, but agreed with the problem, agreed with why we have it, and have gone one step further. So they are now reaping the whirlwind of this. As we've just come to air, one of the Treasury ministers, the Minister for Anti-Corruption, has had to resign for corruption. You can't make this shit up. Last couple of months ago, he lost his trade minister, the girl with the red hair, blue hair.
Oh yeah, I can't remember her name actually.
I can't remember. Louise Haigh.
Yeah.
She had to resign.
Because she was basically a liar.
And a thief.
No, she's a criminal.
She was a liar, a thief and a criminal.
Yeah.
She was.
Yeah.
I predict by Friday afternoon the Chancellor will be gone.
Oh really, Rachel Reeves?
I think she'll be gone Friday afternoon.
That's interesting. Why Friday afternoon? Just because the pressure was just mounting?
Yes, it's mounting. The press are not letting any of this go because they smell blood now.
Yeah.
So they're going after all these ministers. And if you want to get rid of a minister with the least amount of press, do it on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
Everyone goes off at weekends, come back Monday. It's semi-old news.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it'll be this Friday afternoon. And the anti-corruption minister, I believe, was one of Keir Starmer's closest friends.
Oh, she's called Sadiq, isn't she? Something Sadiq.
Something like that. But they're outside of politics, very close friends.
Yeah. Really?
I believe it was her that got him to stand as an MP.
Tulip Sadiq.
In the area next door to her in North London.
Right. Okay.
So they're very close friends. So he's had to let her go. So Rachel.
Well, that's interesting. So if he's let a close friend go,
yeah,
that means he's capable of doing this thing or understands it can be done.
Yeah.
So once you cross that Rubicon, then I guess you can do it, can't you?
Yeah. I think he's been great for the UK. He's shown us where they're taking us. He didn't have the skills to lie to us and to use propaganda. He's not a Tony Blair. He's not a David Cameron who are good at lying to your face. He's awful at communication. He's awful at lying. And because of that, it's done us a favour. We've seen through it all. And huge change is coming.
And I think at the heart of all this, and you and I were exchanging WhatsApp about this earlier in the week, all we're looking for, and I think all that people are now thinking or asking for, is that we prioritise our own citizens and we encourage our own children to thrive. And we've not been doing that for a long time, have we?
We have been prioritising foreigners, foreign countries, crazy ideology. We've not had a government probably since Thatcher in the 80s who concentrated on British people living on the British Isles. Since then, we've been privatising everybody else but ourselves. And it's led to where we are now.
And I think people are now openly talking about it and seeing it, aren't they, basically? They're commenting on it. The first subject I want to cover, which is, I mean, as always, there's a lot has happened in the last week since we've been, so we literally the list of things for us to talk about grows bigger, and we don't always get through them, even though we have quite long chats. But the thing I want to talk about, there's a question I want to ask you first, because you told me recently a lot of videos that you and I do are demonetized, which basically means you can't earn any revenue off them because of ads or whatever.
Yeah.
When certain things are said and talked about, and you said that has changed slightly. But one of the things I've noticed, a lot of people on YouTube, they're not using certain words Because is that because they're still scared of that, and is that still the case? There are certain words that you can't use on YouTube without getting into trouble or whatever.
It's not so much getting into trouble. It's all about being demonetized.
Yeah.
So especially if you're earning a living on YouTube, these people don't want to take a chance of that day's work not being monetized.
Yeah.
What's the point of doing the work then?
Yeah.
And those words tend to be things like rape, abuse, sexual assault, and if they're being constantly talked about, it used to be demonetized. What I noticed in a couple of years, every time I've discussed the grooming gangs and just mentioned grooming gangs, that video has always been demonetized automatically.
Right.
I emailed you a week ago because we were talking about it in the last episode.
Yeah.
And when I put all the videos out, I went back to check them to see which ones had been demonetized. None of them had.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, things have changed here.
Wow.
Because normally just having the word grooming gang in the title of the video or on the thumbnail was enough to demonetize it. Not to get into trouble.
Yeah.
But I think it's become a mainstream topic now. So YouTube have gone, what's a mainstream topic? It's not a far right conversation anymore now. It's not a conspiracy theory anymore now. We'll monetize these videos. So that has definitely changed.
Wow. Because the title for this section I wanted to use, and you used the word before, the R word. I wasn't going to use the grooming gang word. Wow. So what I've entitled this is Pakistani child rape gangs. That's what I've called it. Because I think that's what they are, isn't it?
They are.
There's a lot to talk about this, and it's been in the media. I think it's been certainly on X and YouTube a lot in the past week, basically. But I just want to start with the media and how they've been involved in this. So if we look at the last 14 years when all this stuff has been happening with these rape gangs, the word in that time in the media, the word racism has been mentioned 382,000 times. The word far right has been used 231,000 times. Can you guess how many times, and the media are saying they've been covering this and dealing with it, can you guess how many times the mainstream media have used the words grooming gang in those 14 years?
I'd say a lot less.
Yes, 4,659 times.
4,000, all?
Yeah. So that compares, and net zero has been 141,000 times. So all these elite opinions about racism, the far right, have been used in the manner of hundreds of thousands. The words grooming gangs in the mainstream media has only been used 4,659 times. So the media are complicit in this.
The media are complicit, but in a different way. By not doing their job, by not reporting it, by not discussing it. And the reason why they didn't discuss it is because they believe their own lies. They believe their own lies that this is a far right talking point, that this isn't really going on. And we're sure girls are being raped, of course they are, but it's not predominantly Pakistani men, it's not predominantly in Asian areas, in Labour areas. This is just a propaganda of the far right to claim something that's not true. And they believed it because they wanted to believe it, because it fitted in with their worldview of diversity is our strength. How can diversity be our strength when diversity raping our children? One of them has to be wrong. It must be the diversity raping our children is wrong, because I know diversity is our strength, because my college university lecturer told me, and all my politicians tell me, my boss tells me, and the policies at work all tell me. So something has to be wrong here, and it must be those far right lunatics making stuff up. They're the ones who are wrong.
Yeah,
that's why.
And we're actually finding out diversity is our weakness, not our strength, and massively so. You and I have been talking about this as well, because we're going to talk about what happened during the Bangladesh Liberation War. But one of our contributors, somebody who sends us information, and he gave us an interesting spin that you and I have kind of developed, and he said, let's not call them grooming gangs. Let's call them what they are, government-sanctioned rape squads. Now, that sounds like a fairly horrific analysis of what we're talking about here, and of course your mind immediately goes to Africa and the places where we know the government support and sanction gangs of I'm just thinking it's Boko Haram or people like that to go out and actually actively rape women of the opposing ideology or tribe or whatever it might be. But he then went on to say, and I'm interested in your opinions on this, mass rape of children is a form of ethnic cleansing. It might seem a bit bombastic to compare it to an African civil war, but it's basically what it is. Potentially hundreds of thousands of girls, which we know that is the case, who probably will never be able to trust a man or have a family, even if they're even capable of having kids after being gang raped that young. I mean, that seems a fairly extreme view, but is that something you subscribe to as a concept?
I don't think it was state sanctioned. State sanctions means it was ticked off by the government that you can do this. I don't think it was ever ticked off by any government that you can do this. It's acceptable. It was hidden. It was they didn't have enough backbone to tackle this, even though they know they should have done. So it's cowardice and weakness and incompetence. It isn't a state sanctioned project that they've sent people out to do, unlike in certain wars where soldiers are told to rape women, kill children, because they're trying to instill a sense of fear, because it's easier to be a fearful nation than a non-fearful nation. We've used rape as a weapon of war forever. That's been used for that. The damage to the girls is undeniable, absolutely undeniable. My charity worked with one of the Rochdale grooming gang survivors. We met her about 10 years ago. She'd fled Rochdale and couldn't live in Rochdale anymore. She was scared, and she was living in Manchester, and we were trying to get her a job. And one day she just disappeared. It was like, we sort of understand why she's disappeared. She was a very broken young woman at that time. And then so many years later, we were running a homeless project in the city centre, and we were in one of the homeless shelters, popping in to catch up with some of the clients we've been working with on the streets. And she was in there, and my staff started speaking to her, saying, we worked with you before, how's it all going? And she was telling them, and she goes, can you do me a favour? And my staff said, yeah, of course. It was a female member of staff. She said, can you go upstairs to the bathrooms with me and sit outside the bathroom door because I need a shower? And she went, no, it's okay. There's huge locks on the doors. She goes, no. She goes, I need someone sat outside. She goes, I've been taken into that many bathrooms and washed clean and then raped, that I need someone sat outside that door. That's how broken some of these girls are, that she can't have a shower by herself
after all that time,
without someone guarding the door that's got a big lock on it, because she's scared stiff, because she has memories of what goes on.
She associates a bathroom, being in a bathroom, having a shower, with basically being raped. I mean, and that's the point, isn't it? All these girls, because we hear this estimate, and I still don't know where it comes from, of 250,000 girls across the country being raped systematically, and we'll talk later about how long this has been going on. If they are broken like that, will they ever have normal lives, normal families, normal relationships with men and with their children? Some will. Small. I don't know what that percentage is, but it'll be it'll be a minority number, not the majority of them. They will be damaged. They'll be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. They won't be trusting anybody. Men, women, family. They'll fall out with their family because they would have felt, you didn't protect me. A lot of them will be taking drugs because that nulls the pain. So they become drug addicts. This woman I was talking about them, she was sleeping in a squat in the city centre because she'd lost her accommodation because she's broken now, and these are damaged people now. You mentioned you wrote an article during the week about the Bangladesh Liberation War.
Pakistani Civil War,
Pakistani Civil War.
Yeah.
Was that between Pakistan and Bangladesh, was it?
Well, at that time they were called East Pakistan and West Pakistan.
Right, yeah. And you drew some parallels, I think, to what's happening now. Do you want to just let our viewers know what that's about?
So the article was looking at the grooming gangs and asking the question, is this a cultural trait? Is this inherent in the Pakistani community? If it is, we'll see other examples of this, historic examples of when they've done this type of thing before. So I start off with Islam. So there's evidence in the Quran. You know, we know Muhammad married a 6-year-old, but do you know what? Our kings were marrying children to join kingdoms together. But Muhammad went one step further and consummated the marriage when she was 9. I don't think European kings were having sex with 9-year-old queens. So it's in there. It's also in the Quran that Muhammad had sex slaves. He was given sex slaves as well. Women you captured in war became war booty, and you could rape them. And then I then looked at the 1971 Pakistani Civil War, when East Pakistan wanted to break away and become independent, and eventually became Bangladesh in 1971. Well documented. There's been tribunals on this in Pakistan, war crime tribunals, and they reckon at least 250,000 Bangladeshi women were raped in that year. And they've highlighted thousands of what we would call now Pakistani men who were involved. There's evidence and proper evidence from the time that imams and mosques in Pakistan were telling soldiers that this is okay to do. They're non-believers, they're not really Muslims, they pretend to be Muslims. This is classed as war booty, you can rape as many as you want. And that was being talked about in Pakistan at that time as if it was normal. And then we had mass immigration into this country, and we look at the culture then. We've talked about cousin marriage.
And this is not that far away, is it? 1971 is not that long ago, is it, really?
That will be some of the guys who are gang raping children in our country. This will be their fathers.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's not long ago at all. We talked about cousin marriage, and what cousin marriage does in those communities is reinforce the clan, where everyone belongs to the same family clan. That breeds and fosters a sense of the other. You're not like us. And that's what they were being told about the Bangladeshi women. But when that community has moved here, they're now looking at white Christians, so not brown Muslims, and look what they did to brown Muslims. They're now looking at white Christians and thinking, you're not like us. You're the other. And if you're the other, that means we can abuse you because you're not even Muslim. And you're just, as they were called, you're just a white slag. And that was, the article was about looking at how they could do this. And the argument was it's a cultural trait.
And this concept of the infidel, I think they call it the kafir, don't they? Which is basically the non-Muslim. And the state of war. And I think your point about the idea of these women as being booty in a war, in a war, basically.
Spoils of war.
So almost being disregarded as human beings in terms of the fact they are just part of the prize they win in a war against other religions, whether that may be Christian.
And we've got a more modern example of that, but not about the Pakistani community. In Syria, ISIS enslaved all the Yazidi women. I'm not sure what religion they are, some sort of Christianity or whatever they are. Captured them all, enslaved them all, sold them at slave markets. A lot of this is online, and videos of this online. We've all got phones now. It's only 10 years ago. And some of those women were burnt alive if they didn't succumb to being a sex slave. And others are telling their story now, being raped thousands of times and being sold online. There's actually price lists, documents of price lists of what these women were worth. If you was a woman over 50, you weren't worth much. If you was a child under 6, you weren't worth much. But women in between, different categories, depending on how much you were worth. You could buy a woman in Syria, a Yazidi woman in Syria, for the price of a box of cigarettes, a packet of cigarettes. That's how cheap they were going. And that's 10 years ago. On the border of Europe, Syria is only next to Turkey.
Well, Syria is the Mediterranean, isn't it, basically? So, and I think the point you're making here is not that all Muslims or Pakistanis or rapists or whatever. What you're saying is, culturally, this is something that is not that distant. What is happening to these girls? This is something that is not that distant in the memory of these countries where these people have come from.
This is their culture. This is what happens in their homelands. They've only been here, some of them, 1 or 2 generations. And we think we're going to, without even trying, we think we're going to get them to reject 2,000 years of their culture.
Yeah.
We think we're going to get them to reject an ideology that was whispered in the sand dunes of the Arabian Peninsula.
It's a very romantic vision.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you look at, the person they respect the most is Muhammad.
Yeah.
He did all these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Islam needs a reformation.
Yes.
And I think it's coming. My latest article, that's not out yet for free. It'll be out next week for free. That's all about how the internet is going to destroy Islam. And out of that, we'll have a reformation and we'll have a modern version of Islam fit for the 21st century.
Well, isn't that happening now?
Yep.
Isn't that happening now with Twitter, with YouTube, all that now? These things are now being shown in the light of day, aren't they, basically? I think we also need a reformation in the UK, because I think the elites, the establishment who believe we're all these racists, we're Islamophobes or whatever, are trying to project their values, their beliefs, their culture onto these cultures, and they don't conceptually understand the actual way they think and the way they behave and the things they can do because of their culture. They don't believe it's possible. They don't believe a brown person can do these things because they're projecting what they want these people to be like, because they want to embrace diversity, multiculturalism or whatever. So they're either ignoring Nick, or they're choosing, or they're projecting their own beliefs and their own morals onto this society, and it's not the same, is it?
They believe they believe in the reality that they've made up for themselves.
Yes.
Have you heard the story of the frog and the scorpion?
Yes, I have heard the frog and the scorpion
Quickly
story.
for listeners, it's a frog and a scorpion are on a tiny bit of land, and it's flooding, and it's about to flood over this little bit of land, and the frog's not worried, he can swim away. The scorpion says to the frog, "Could I jump on your back and can you take me to the other side of the bank?" And the frog goes, "No, because you'll sting me and kill me." And the scorpion goes, "No, I promise I won't, because if I sting you, you'll die and we'll both drown in the water. I won't do that." So the frog goes, "Okay." Scorpion jumps on his back. He swims halfway across the river, and the scorpion stings him in the back. And the frog cries out, "Why? Why have you done this? We're both going to die." And the scorpion goes, "I'm a scorpion. It's what I do."
And the parallel there, it's a great story. I love that story. Yeah, he says it's in my nature. I can't help it. And we the British have got a scorpion on our back at the moment, haven't we? That's the reality of it. And the people in charge don't believe there's a scorpion there, or don't want to believe. It's interesting because Yvette Cooper and Starmer are trying to disguise what is happening here by lumping this rape, these grooming gangs in with all child assaults. I don't know if you saw Yvette Cooper standing up, and she talked generally about
been doing this for
child
years,
assaults. But of course, it's far more than that, isn't it? Because the one thing that they always talk about is we won't tolerate racism, there's hate crimes or whatever. But what we've got here, this does merit special attention and a specific inquiry, because these are racially aggravated assaults and rapes. And I don't think they've quite got it yet. They don't understand that these Muslim Pakistani men are targeting white girls. They're not targeting Muslim girls. They're not targeting brown girls. They are specifically targeting white British girls. And that, by any measure, Nick, isn't it, is racism of the worst kind.
It is, and to further on that point, you only have to look at some of the testimony of some of the girls about how they were treated and what they were called.
Yeah.
They were called white dogs, white slags.
Yeah.
And that's
white trash.
White trash. That's by the men who were abusing them. The men themselves looked down upon them because they were white. Do the politicians believe what they're saying? No, they don't. This is just the decades-old playbook. we've got this grooming gang problem. We want and rely on Muslim votes. We cannot pick a side here now. So therefore we need to muddy the water. The playbook says call everyone racist and far right and muddy the water about how many white paedophiles there are. And that's been working for 4 decades. They're just pulled the playbook out, but that playbook's outdated
It's
now.
not working now.
It doesn't work anymore now. It doesn't work, but that's the only book they've got to look in, and they're still doing the same old stuff.
Yeah. I think the reality is the white British people like me as well, who's not quite white but half white, are, we're hearing this now and just ignoring it. Yeah. This idea of, racists,
they've
far
overused
right,
it, haven't they? They've overused it.
This idea that, white men rape women, girls as well.
Yeah.
No, they don't. Not in this scale, and not in this level of gangs, and certainly not in the percentages that we're looking at here.
Let's address white male raping children, because it needs looking at. I'm for the execution of all these perverts and paedophiles, all of them, regardless of race.
I'm nodding, but I'm not agreeing. I don't believe in
that. So it's not like I am only concentrating on the Muslim Pakistani grooming gangs. I spent 20 years fighting child sexual exploitation. I've had paedophiles arrested and prosecuted. I haven't yet had one Asian man arrested and prosecuted for paedophilia, because the guys I've caught were all white. So this happens in every community. Yeah. We don't have to look at Jimmy Savile, Hugh Edwards. The list is endless of white people who abuse children. Same with black people, same with Chinese people, same with women. That's the next big story coming out. There's evidence that 50% of all paedophiles are women. That's something that may be coming out in the next few years if we start looking into it more.
Let's not put in the waters of what we're talking about.
But that's what I'm saying, is at this moment in time we're looking at one particular crime, and we call it the grooming gangs. It's the grooming, the coercion, the control of young girls in poor areas who are vulnerable, with the use of free food, free taxis, free drugs, pretending I'm your boyfriend, and then allowing other men who are nearly always related and friendly with each other. So it's cousins, uncles, dads, brothers, my next door neighbour, the guys I go to the mosque with, and using that as a cohort of the same ethnic group, religious group, to then abuse young, vulnerable white children. That's the crime we're looking at. A month from now, let's look at white dirty perverts and what they're doing, and let's stop those crimes and let's prosecute them. But always muddying the water that, it's not, other people abuse children. Well, no shit, Sherlock, we know that. But at the moment, we're talking about this case because it's unique. It's because it's been hidden by politicians.
Yeah.
No other group of people are raping, and it's being hidden by politicians. No one else is doing that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the community these people come from have never organised and told us how outraged they are
Correct.
at it.
Yeah.
So when the white Christian Catholic priests were raping boys and we all found out, it was the Catholics going, this is disgusting.
Yes.
My priests were doing this. And it's the same with other groups, but in the Pakistani Muslim community, those people in there have kept their mouths shut because the vast majority knew what was going on. I'm not saying they thought it was right, but they thought, well, this happens in our homeland, and the white tarts probably deserved it anyway. And my community is more important to me than this so-called British morality. The Muslim community let themselves down. So this is a different type of crime, and that's why we're highlighting it.
Yeah. But also, we do have white British rapists. We do have all that going on. But those are our white British rapists of children. This here is something we've imported.
Yeah.
This is the point that I think most people miss. Yes, of course we have that problem in our own white community. But we've now we don't need any more. We've actually imported a vast number of this going on for white British girls. That's the point, right? Regardless of whether white men do it or not. Yeah, we'll deal with the white guys, but let's deal with this issue, which we've imported and that needs to be stamped out and extinguished. That's the point. And it's interesting you're talking about Muslims talking, but where are the famous, decent, moderate Muslims in all this? So far, zero community leaders or imams have come out and come forward. And we talk about decent, law-abiding, moderate Muslims.
There is a few.
Yeah.
But I can count on one hand.
Well, I was going to say, are they something I copied off somebody else here, the silent, invisible majority or the non-existent majority? I would argue it's the existence. And somebody else said this, it's been said, radical Muslims are snakes, yeah? Moderate Muslims are the grass they hide in. And I think that's true. We have seen no Muslims coming out and speak. Well, we've seen one or two, and I think you interviewed.
Yeah, we have.
We've seen but it's literally either the ones that come out are vilified, and I think what's even worse, Nick, we've seen this. The few Muslims in the grooming gangs who have been prosecuted, arrested, sent into prison, whilst they're actually being tried, their families are in the docks cheering them on, spitting and shouting at the white victims, and then when they come out of prison, they are embraced back into their communities.
Yeah.
Whereas what happens to a white child rapist in this country?
He would be assaulted in the street.
Yeah.
I remember talking to an old man when I was a kid, and he knew it was either the brother of the cousin, I think it was a cousin, or the brother of the cousin of one of the Moors murderers. I can't remember if it was Mary Henley or Ian Brady, but he was related to them. And he was telling me, he was in Gorton in Manchester, and he was saying on most Friday nights, this relative of one of them would be regularly be assaulted after it all came out.
Yeah.
He had nothing to do with the murders.
Yeah.
All that was wrong with that man was he shared some genes with a monster.
Yeah.
And that was enough for him to be assaulted almost every weekend in the pub.
Yeah.
He didn't even really know these people. He wasn't involved. He never got interviewed by the police. He was just related to one of them. That's how we used to treat paedophiles and child murderers in this country. If you were related to one of them, you got a hard time.
Yeah.
Where in the Pakistani community, you could rape white children, probably not go to jail, but even if you go to jail, when you're out, your community welcomes you again. You go to the same mosque, you live in the same house, you get the same job, you've got the same family and friends. No one looks down upon you. No one criticises you. No one assaults you. Because at some level it's acceptable.
Yeah, and that's the difference, isn't it? Culturally, the white British people, the indigenous population, despise child rapists. They are vilified, they're attacked in prison. Yeah. They're, can often be killed in prison as well. Whereas in the Muslim community, in the Pakistani Muslim community, it's accepted. This is okay. Yeah. This is fine. Yeah, this is, nobody has complained. And that in itself is another thing that stinks about all this. The fact that nobody in the Muslim community is saying anything about this.
The Muslim community in general have let themselves down. There's, 4 or 5 million Muslims in the UK? I can count on one hand the ones I've heard on the news, on social media, talking about this and being critical. On one hand, and there's a population of 4 or 5 million. Disgraceful.
Now, there have been a few people talk that there's a guy I think called Raja Mia.
Yeah.
So I think you interviewed him. I think he is a Muslim, isn't he?
He's a Muslim, Bangladeshi origin.
Yeah, and he's actually spoken out about this.
Yeah. Constantly for the last 6 years.
And how has he been received both in the Muslim community and by the establishment in terms of...
He's been arrested 6 times by Greater Manchester Police for hate crimes and stuff like that. Every case has been thrown out of court, so he's not got a criminal record because it's always been politically motivated. That's why they keep arresting him. He has challenged Oldham Council. He's put projects together and campaigns together that have got certain people deselected and losing their council seats. He's been fighting this for 6 years. He still goes to mosque.
And what's happened in his community?
I'm not too sure. It doesn't seem to be that bad. His problems are really with the council and the organised criminal Muslim community, because a lot of this is criminal as well. He's had a hard time, but he still managed to keep his faith. He still goes to mosque, but he's been fighting this for 6 years.
Let's talk about how the establishment has reacted to this so far. So there was a vote in Parliament, I think put forward by the Tories. And by the way, when I say this, I'm not in any way praising the Tories, because they've had 19 years to fix, or 14 years to fix this, and they've done nothing.
Yeah, but now it's a political football to attack them with. I know.
So as far as I'm concerned, they're as guilty as Labour in all this. However, they did put forward a motion to have a national inquiry into this, and every single Labour politician voted against that. Is that correct?
No.
Thank you.
No Labour politicians voted for it, but quite a few Labour politicians abstained.
Yes.
Who abstained? The front bench. Starmer, Lammy, Reeves.
I knew Starmer hadn't. I didn't realise the front bench hadn't.
They all abstained. It was a 3-line whip. They made all their MPs vote against it. And then they didn't vote against it.
What?
And they've done that. The only reason I can think of is they did that is because in the future they can say,
yeah, unbelievable.
But a 3-line whip, for people who don't know, a 3-line whip means you vote the way we tell you to vote, otherwise we kick you out of the party. That's a 3-line whip. No one voted for it in the Labour Party. No one voted against it in the Lib Dems, Greens and Labour. They all voted the same. The only people who voted for the inquiry were Reform and the Tories. But the Tories were using it as political football.
So let's carry on with how the establishment reacted to this.
Yep.
The police responded. So Northants Police, and I think I sent you this tweet, they posted a picture of a man who had groomed and raped a 10-year-old girl.
Yep.
Guess what colour he was?
White.
He was white, a white Englishman.
Yeah.
So this is the response of the police to this scandal. And I was stunned when I saw it. It almost came out the day after the story started breaking. It's like, we'll do something about this. We'll post a picture of a white guy who's groomed and raped a 10-year-old girl.
He may have groomed and raped her, but did he share her with 15 other men? Did he drive around all the other areas in the north of England, a different town every day, so other 15, 20 men could rape her?
I don't think he did.
No, he didn't. So it isn't the same type of crime.
Yeah.
This guy still needs hanging.
Yeah.
But it's a different type of crime.
Dan Wooten commented on Channel 4. Channel 4 put out a documentary.
Yeah.
Pretty much in the week this was all breaking. And the documentary was called Accused, the Fake Grooming Scandal.
Yeah.
And the pictures of it showed a Pakistani Muslim guy, whatever. And basically it's a program about somebody who accused somebody of a grooming scandal. It didn't happen. So
it was a mentally ill woman.
Yes.
Who came home one day, she scratched her face and stuff like that, and then claimed she'd been kidnapped and groomed and gang raped and taken places, and it turned out she was a fantasist. She was mentally ill.
But why show that? Why not show the real grooming gang scandal? So the mainstream media, the mainstream channels are all still trying to hide this hide
it and excuse it.
Yes. Tom Holland, I actually used to quite like him. He's a presenter who presents The Rest Is History, and he's a historian. He's quite an articulate and interesting guy. He posted a tweet saying the motives of those who turned a blind eye to this scandal was indeed noble. So
I read the whole tweet.
Yes.
I got the point he was trying to make. It was extremely poorly worded, ill-advised at that time to be saying that.
But why would you associate the word noble with somebody who had covered over for decades the mass rape of our young white children?
What he meant by noble was it was noble trying to protect this ideology that we all think is wonderful. That's what was noble. Noble was trying to protect wokeism. Noble was trying to protect multiculturalism. Noble was trying to protect this amazing country we live in that has different people from all over the world, and we get on amazing. Trying to protect that's noble. That's what he meant. Turns out he was wrong, and none of it's noble. It's all stupid ideology. But yeah, it sounded a lot worse than what he meant.
Yeah,
he got absolutely vilified on social
media. Quite right,
it
should be. You cannot use that word anywhere near what has happened here.
No, and it was also the wrong time to have that discussion.
Yeah,
because what you could read into that as well, was it was excusing the behaviour again.
Correct.
And I'm tired of people telling me, when I want to talk about children being raped, I don't want to have a conversation about other problems.
Yeah.
If I want to talk about child rape, let's talk about child rape.
Let's talk about child rape.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about multicultural, how wonderful it is. I don't want to talk about how we penalise gay men in the 50s and 60s. What's that got? I'm talking about child rape today.
Lots of people are talking about it in a positive. Wes Streeting, who's the I don't know what his role is, by the way.
NHS.
Yeah, NHS.
Yeah,
he posted a tweet where he said that there's been a number of leaders in the Muslim community have been robust in condemning the rape gangs. So Andrew Neil, and again, I'm up and down with Andrew Neil. Sometimes I like him. So he on Twitter then responded and said, "Yes, I'm sure that's the case, Wes. Please, can you give me a list of these leaders who?" And of course, there was no response.
There is no list.
There is no list because no leaders in the Pakistani Muslim community have come forward to condemn the grooming gang.
They haven't, and it's those platitudes all the time. You know, a bomb goes off, Islamic nutcase blows people up, and the news will say, this has also outraged the Muslim community. Where?
Yeah.
Where are the demonstrations?
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually at one point believing that the Muslims were too stupid to organise demonstrations, and then the Free Palestine demonstrations.
I was going to say that's
like, I was wrong there, wasn't I? I didn't think they could organise demonstrations. They only can organise demonstrations when it's something that directly affects them and their religion.
Yeah.
When it comes to their neighbours' children's being gang raped, we don't organise demonstrations for that.
Yeah.
Because those children are not the same as my children.
Yeah.
You're not the same clan and religion as me. I don't care about you. I care more about foreign Muslim children than I do about Christian children who live next door to me.
Yeah. There is a hero that has emerged on the Labour side, though, who I'd like to talk about. A significant Labour member, a Labour politician.
I'm waiting for a joke here. I can see a twinkle in your eye.
A significant Labour politician, high-profile Labour politician, has demanded a national inquiry, and he's local to us. He's our mayor, Andy Burnham.
I knew there's a twinkle in your eye.
So one of the Labour politicians has broken ranks.
A senior one.
A senior one.
Yeah.
And
did you read his wording of what he said?
Oh, here we go. Well, I don't need to. It's just the principle of the thing, isn't it?
The principle.
A limited national inquiry.
You've said the word now, limited.
Yes. Okay.
What's the point of a limited inquiry? Because all that's going to do then is produce a replica of all the other reports.
A limited response, I suppose. Yeah.
Which will be, this can't happen now. People were scared of being called racist. Lessons have been learned. We've got safeguarding procedures in place now. That's all a limited inquiry is going to tell us.
Yeah.
We don't want a limited inquiry. I don't even want an inquiry. I want a Justice and Truth Commission. I want something completely different. I want a commission that has the legal power to force people onto the stand, like a court. And if you lie, it's what's the word when you lie in court?
Perjury.
Perjury. I want to be able to arrest people who don't turn up in court. That's the sort of inquiry I want. I want that
compulsory attendance.
Yes, I want a Truth and Justice Commission. The same sort of thing we had in South Africa after apartheid, when serious questions needed answering, and when you have a government involved in the abuse and the rape of children, you can't allow the government then to do the review. We need a commission, a Truth and Justice Commission, to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, but good old Andy, he did break ranks, didn't he? He did break ranks.
Clear water now between him and Starmer, because I said in my prediction, Andy Burnham is going to jump this year to MP ready for Prime Minister.
So this is kind of the first stone that he's thrown in terms of into the water,
because he knows this has heavily damaged Keir Starmer and damaged the Labour Party.
You think he's getting political capital by saying this?
So when he runs,
even though he knows an inquiry won't happen,
but he can say, "I called for one."
Yeah, but he's also been sitting on his arse here for 8 years, doing nothing again, hasn't he, about the grooming gangs?
Well, he commissioned a report in Greater Manchester, and it wasn't worth the paper it was written on. For people who don't understand political reports and commissions, if it's government led, the government write the terms of what he should look into, what he shouldn't look into, and he wrote this one so tight it couldn't. It was like between this year and that year and these people, and it couldn't do what he wanted to do. Lots of people refused to speak to them because it had no powers.
I think what I'd like to see if I ever get into power, Nick, I would organise. You know, like what's that rapper called? The podcaster called who fought Mike Tyson recently.
Oh, him, yeah.
I'd like to see a celebrity fight between you and Andy Burnham. I think people would pay money for that. I think that would be on Sky. I think, you know, first thing I'd do, I got to power.
Yeah.
I'd say there'd be a Sky pay-per-view. Yeah. I said it'd only be £1 to watch
Thunderdome.
it. Yeah, Thunderdome.
2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
And I'd give you both 6 months to train up for it. And then you'd just go in there. And I think it would be not boxing, I think it would be MMA fighting.
Yes.
No holds barred, basically. I reckon you could take him.
It'd be interesting. Let's see if we did it like Mad Max 3 with the Thunderdome.
Yes!
Yeah. Chainsaws on the roofs if you can get to them and things like that.
It's the only way to fix this hostile relationship that's been going on.
And to save money, we could have the fight on the top deck of one of his buses.
We mentioned this at the beginning, but how long has this been going on? And I sent you an article from 1975 in the Rotherham Observer or whatever. I don't know what the paper's called in Rotherham. And it was about a 15-year-old girl who had been raped by Pakistani men. And the phraseology used in this, and the judge basically said she had been very well used sexually. And at the end of this, she had to apologise. She had to say she'd try and do better and she'd try and work hard. But basically the article, almost word for word, replicated what's been happening to these young girls. She was taken upstairs, there were multiple men turned up, raped her or whatever. Yeah. She was seen, but she was in this situation regarded as the person at fault.
Yeah.
So this is 1975, Nick.
That was when I was a child, and I remember growing up and girls telling me I don't go into that kind of shop, he's a dirty pervert.
Really?
I remember girls telling me who worked on Longsight Market about how they stopped working on that stall because every time they tried to put something on the shelf, the boss would go behind them and grab their tits. This was.
Are these Pakistani men, are they?
And this was the 70s, so I wouldn't have said I knew then about the gang rapes and stuff like that.
But you knew about the attitude to women and young girls.
At that point then, lots of girls on my estate who I knew was telling me that local Pakistani men in shops on the market were dirty perverts and would grope them. So I knew that then.
A doctor working, there was an article by a doctor who'd worked in one of these towns, I don't know, it was Rochdale, always coming, and he said he's always coming into contact with victims of these rapists. Obviously presumably they will come for all sorts of reasons, psychological, probably even physical damage, I would suspect, given what the horrific things we've heard. He said in his time in this GP practice, they have awareness initiatives for everything, LGBT, BLM, all this crap. He said not once have they had an initiative for victims of this gang rape.
Yeah, and that's follows on from the podcast we did about how many days of the year do we celebrate LGBT crap and how many days of the year do we look at child rape and child abuse. So it was something like 8 days a year is something you could class as looking at vulnerable children, and it was 220 days a year dedicated to LGBT shit. So it doesn't surprise me at all that the NHS, the doctors, don't want to go near this because it's politically damaging. And this goes at the heart of this is why we have this problem, is because everyone is too scared to talk about it and do something about it. We've basically sacrificed over 100,000 children on the altar of political correctness, and we're all guilty for this. Even the ones who didn't abuse those girls were all guilty at some level for not doing enough. Even if we did things and tried to do things, we didn't do enough, did we? Because it's still going on today. We didn't do enough by holding our politicians to account, our councillors to account. We've not been on the streets demonstrating about this. We'll get on the streets about everything else, but not about this. So as a nation, we're guilty. And we need to accept that, look internal about how we're going to change ourselves, as well as the nation. Otherwise, these problems will continue.
I mean, the government, the Labour Party, or Tories, you know, I regard them as, I mean, they don't make it any better, do they? The Welsh Refugee Council, which, and I sent you the ad, and I'm sure you couldn't believe it when you saw it. They want to entice migrant men to Wales, basically. And they have an ad, which is set in a school. And the girls who are asking people to come saying, you're welcome to our country, 12-year-old girls, schoolgirls in school uniform, on this ad, which is sent abroad to entice men to come to England. And they're using 12-year-old girls for that advert.
I wonder why.
Well, I mean, why?
If you're trying to sell sausages, it's best to base your advertisement in a butcher shop, isn't it?
It's just... Yeah, if you're trying to attract meat eaters, show them sausages. I mean, it's just to watch that advert, and I urge our viewers to try and find it. The Welsh Refugee Council. They are using 12-year-old girls to entice migrant men to this country.
So we've got foreign men across the world thinking of coming here.
Yeah.
And they've already heard about and seen on TikTok the loose morals of British women.
Yes.
Which is true.
Yeah.
Not every woman, but a lot of women, loose morals. They've heard the stories. They've heard from their cousins about the gang rapes, and the women loved it, the children loved it, and they're thinking of coming to the UK. And now there is a Labour government funded advertisement saying to them, come here, look at me, I'm 12. So I want you to come here. I want you to come here. It's an horrendous message they're sending and enticing these men using 12-year-old white pretty girls. It's disgusting.
It's grotesque, isn't it?
It is. And let's forget the fact we shouldn't be encouraging them to come here in the first place.
Correct.
No matter who they are and where they live. Why have we got government money being spent on advertising to encourage more migrants to come when the whole country wants none of them to come?
Yeah. We've gone on for quite a long time, and I think this is actually wrapping up the whole episode, but I want to ask you a question in a minute, but I just thought you might be interested to know, one of the WhatsApp groups I'm in have been talking a lot about this. It's quite interesting seeing the dynamic shift in the WhatsApp groups as well. Talking about immigration, they wouldn't do it. 6 months ago to a year ago, if I ever made a post about immigration, or it just went very, very quiet. Now they're all talking about it.
They've been given permission now.
They've been given permission to talk about it. Rob, the American, our friend, is in the group, that particular group. One of them posted something that I thought it was really interesting observation, and he said that much of the establishment have the same opinion of these girls as the perpetrators. And I thought that was really insightful, and this is my response, because you and I have talked about this before, and I genuinely think this is the way they think. And I think I've recounted to you before, I went to a party which was basically the great and the good of Manchester. They were all the partners from Manchester law firms, and a friend of mine of a law firm, during a conversation, it was just after Brexit, and he said, the working class should not be given the vote. The people who voted for Brexit should not be given should not have the vote. They're too thick to understand what they're doing. They shouldn't be given the vote. And I believe that is the way a lot of the people in Islington, in the Labour Party, and the Conservative Party think. And this was my response to the guy. I said, you're right. They despise the white working class. They despise their manual jobs. They despise their drinking and their smoking. They hate them having cars and mobility. They despise them because they voted for Brexit. They hate that they have the vote. They hate that they're like Trump and Elon. They hated them for trying to protest after Southport. They especially hate people like Peter Lynch, the protester who died in jail. Who the fuck did he think he was, saying they were corrupt? And they just wish they were all gone and no longer embarrassing them. Do you think that's the case?
I think the word there is the embarrassing bit. I think they look upon the working class as an embarrassment. Look at yous. Why can't you be more like me? Look at my life. Look at the things I believe in. You wanted Brexit, but we're European partners. You know, you're going about this. You know, you want your cars, but how are we going to save the planet? I think they look down upon the working class as an embarrassment, as their retarded brother and sister who they're ashamed of.
Yeah.
Instead of embracing them and saying we've got differences, but we all want the same thing, a better UK, a better England, you know, stronger families. I think they're just ashamed of the working class. It's snobbery, and it goes back to centuries old, our class system, and it's good old-fashioned snobbery.
But the irony is the Labour Party was formed for the working class, by the working class. And now the very elite who run that party, none of them are working class, and they hate the working class. They sit in Islington, as Jeremy Clarkson said, wondering how these people could possibly have voted for Brexit. They clearly don't understand, do they?
It must be Russian bots.
Yeah.
It can't be that they decided everything that's come out of Europe doesn't benefit me, and leaving Europe might not benefit me, but the status quo doesn't benefit me. I might as well tip up the apple cart and see what happens when I tip it up. That's what Brexit really was. It was about the system's not working for me. Let's tip it upside down and maybe it might turn out better for me because it can't get any worse. And that's how everyone's feeling. That's why big change is coming, because people are willing to take the chance now, because can it get any worse? Can reform end up, you know, making things worse? They may do, they may not, but you know what? Let's take a chance. Because we know what Tories and Labour are going to do, more of the same. Let's take a chance. It might get better.
But they, just going back to the topic in hand, they regard these girls as the children of the people they despise, so they're worthless. That's what they think. I genuinely think that. And
partly, it's their fault.
Yes.
If you had better parents.
Yes.
If you had more self-respect.
You are.
If you had a father at home. If your mum wasn't a crack addict. If you weren't so loose with your knickers. You wouldn't be gang raped because no one pulled you into the building by your hair. You went in there. You asked for a kebab and you were drinking the vodka. Then you got raped. And rape's wrong, and I get that. But you put yourself in that situation.
You deserve it. You're a white slag.
That's how they look at it.
I genuinely believe that, Nick. I genuinely think they think about those girls in that way.
Yeah, they do.
My final question, which is I think is quite a difficult one, and I don't know if you've got the answer. Where is this going to end? Because it's now exposed, isn't it? And we have to, at the end of the day, thank Elon Musk for this. I think we have to thank him. But however it's got out there, it's exposed. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody knows it's happening. The word Pakistani gang rape is being used freely now across all sorts of media. And as you say, it's not even being demonetised now. There's tremendous pressure on the government to do something about this from all directions. Where's this going to end?
There's two scenarios here. The first scenario is it all blows over and we all forget about it, because we've been in these situations before where we all think this is the end now, it's all going to come out, and it all gets whitewashed, and that's the end of it. Nothing's going to happen while Labour are in power, because there's no benefit for them. Whoever wins the next election, is it Tories, is it Reform, is it a coalition between the pair of them, they possibly could do something about this, and they're more likely to than Labour. I think if Reform win the election, it'll definitely happen. But Tories are knee deep in this crap as well. They've been covering it up and for votes and for being cowards. But Reform could force a coalition into it unless they win outright Reform, in which case it's definitely happening. So where's it going to end? It will end when we have a proper Truth and Justice Commission, as I discussed, when people are compelled to talk, compelled to turn up in court, will be sent to jail if we find out they're lying. And at the moment, everyone involved in this, as in the cover-up, we know what went on with it, with the crime itself. We're beyond the crime now. It's a cover-up we need. If we want to make sure this will happen again, we need to make sure all the state people, all the civil servants, will never do this again and cover up again. So they're the ones who need to be held accountable now. If you put a lot of rats in a sack and shake the sack, they'll all fight each other. That's what we need to do. We need to get all this, the senior police officers, the junior police officers, the social workers, we need to be pulling them all into court and this commission going, right, you've got an opportunity here now. You grass up the people above you and we'll let you go. Because if you don't grass them up, we're coming for you. And you see how quick people grass up their bosses when they start going, I was told by my chief inspector not to investigate these crimes because they were grooming gangs crime. Right, Sergeant, thank you for your honesty. That's, off you go now. Yeah. Now we're going after your chief inspector for this now. Yeah. And we can do it with social workers and the head of children's services. If you start getting them in court and we start proper sending someone to jail and put them all within the law, I'm not talking about new laws. We've got enough laws in this country. They will start grassing each other up, and that's what we need. Because at the moment, their playbook is say nothing. Don't turn up if you can, and if you've got to turn up, just say, I don't remember. Or, I don't know who said that. Or I don't
so remember. So that won't be accepted.
That will not.
Or if you do that, you end up in jail.
If you say that, and then, but that's not the end of it, because we're going to look into you more now.
Right.
Because we're not having that.
This is your chance.
This is your chance. You grass up people above you, or we're never going to let you go. And we're going to carry on until we get you on something. And watch them all grass each other up. That's what we need.
But that will only happen if Reform get in, you think?
If Reform get in as a major government or a coalition government. Labour will never do it, because Labour are the biggest losers from this. The Tories, unless there's some sort of Thatcher revolution there, the Tories will never have the balls to do this, and it will also damage them because they covered up lots of this as well.
Yeah.
They just won't be as damaged as much as Labour, but they don't want to damage themselves. At the moment, Reform seems to be the key.
And on that note, we'll end this episode 71, anniversary edition of the Mayor.
1 year anniversary.
1 year anniversary in Buckley.
Thank you
very much.